What's up guys, Aroneous here with another Raid Shadow Legends video, and in today's video I'm going to be going over different champions that you could utilize for when the new dungeon boss comes out in the next patch. So let's get into it. Alright, so right now you can see that we have the current dungeons in rotation. We do have the new 3x on getting specific artifacts out. That's kind of cool. But to the right of these two dungeons, Dragon and Fire Knight, we're going to be getting two new locations, and they are going to be for the brand new dungeon guy. And I believe, I forget the name of the guy, so I'm going to go ahead and showcase the video on it briefly. I'm not going to go through the entire video, but many of you probably already saw the video, to be honest with you. Let me go ahead and just showcase this video real quick.
To do this, you'll need to spend a new resource called oil, which you can think of as somewhat similar to affinity potions. However, you don't need
So the actual roadmap
in one dungeon. You'll need to be at least level 38 to start using Artifact Ascension, and keep in mind, it's geared towards upcoming endgame content, which will really ramp up.
Now, it does talk about endgame content and saying that it's geared towards people that are endgame. And when they talk about this, that means that don't just, if you level up and you're just starting the game and you're going to go to get to level 38, which is the level you need to be to unlock the Sand Devil's Necropolis, don't just start farming there, okay? Don't waste your resources right away. You need to focus on faction wars, you need to focus on upgrading other dungeons, you need to focus on the keeps, you've got Iron Twins, and there's so much going on with all these new things. Don't focus your whole attention on that. Okay, I'm not going to talk too much about that now. Let's get into the champions that you can utilize that are going to be very helpful for you when this crypt opens up. And you're going to be surprised at how some of the champions' value have skyrocketed tenfold. So I'm going to start off with legendary champions that you can utilize. And one of the recent bomb champions that came out that's legendary, who is actually really good, is Gaius the Gleeful. And Gaius is a great champion. If you do have him, awesome. You can actually utilize this guy, I'm pretty sure, for the boss as well, because he does have a 75% chance of placing a sleep debuff on each enemy for one turn. Also places the bombs as well that detonate after 2 turns. So Gaius the Gleeful might actually be very, very good champion to utilize against this upcoming boss. Next champion is going to be someone that I recently pulled if you've been watching my shard pull videos, and that is Harvest Jack. He's in the Undead Hordes. So here's Harvest Jack. Harvest Jack also has a sleep, and it is going to be on, let's see, here it is, the A3. So attacks all enemies, 75% chance of placing a True Fear, 75% chance of placing a sleep debuff for 1 turn if the True Fear debuff is not placed. So since the bosses cannot get True Feared in this game, that means that you could utilize Harvest Jack, and Harvest Jack probably is sitting in most players' vault that are endgame. You now can go ahead and take Harvest Jack out of that vault, and you can play him against this new upcoming boss. And I just recently pulled him. He's only rank 5 level 50, but I'm still upgrading him. He also has this amazing one attack decreases duration of all buffs on the attacker for 1 turn. So if the boss is stacking buffs, then hopefully you can just remove them. More to come on that. Of course, I didn't read too deep into the boss's kit and mechanics. I'd have to watch the video. I just really want to go over different champions that are going to be utilized, or that you can utilize to play against the brand new boss. So Harvest Jack, consider bringing him in since he's very tanky. He's got good speed. He already has a base level 20 accuracy. A lot of people out there are not going to be too worried about or concerned about getting their accuracy levels up there. You want to use perception, or you want to use buffs that are going to help keep your team alive, and you want to use champions that are going to be support-based champions that are going to keep your team alive as long as possible, because this guy is going to apparently hit super hard. So yeah, consider bringing in Harvest Jack. The next champion, of course, which many endgame players have, is going to be Prince Kymar of the Demon Spawn. I don't have Prince Kymar. I actually only have 1 Demon Spawn legendary. This is my main free-to-play account, by the way. I just have Drexstar, which you can get from the bazaar, and then I pulled the Drexstar. Super unlucky. Like, as a free-to-play, it really hurts when you first started playing the game and you pull a Drexstar. I pulled a double Drexstar before the duplicate system came out. Before this brand new system right here came out with the Guardian Ring, I pulled a second Drexstar. Super annoying. But anyways, Kymar's got the sleep right there on the A2 on a 3-turn cooldown. He's insane as well. He also has speed in arena, which is not going to be helpful for the dungeon. and he also resets cooldown. So I think a lot of endgame players are just going to go with Kymar, Siphi, and then a couple other crazy good champions that have high resistance and things like that. You could also consider utilizing Mithrala because she can place those big shields. Now Mithrala is not placing sleep or anything like that, but she does have Hex, so I'm interested to see if Hex will be beneficial for your team when you use Mithrala as well. But I think Mithrala will be more so helpful with the big shields that she can place. So yeah, Prince Kymar is definitely going to be utilized by a lot of endgame players. So is Siphi, of course. But these are the legendaries I'm going over right now are AoE type sleepers. The next person is actually brand new, and he's in the Dark Elves, and this guy is Noct. So this guy is brand spanking new. He just came out. He actually looks pretty sick. He's got a really cool looking spider on him, looks like. That's a creepy looking spider that's like attached to his back. It's almost like it's a virus and it's giving him powers, or he has this spider on his back in order for him to be able to gain the powers and things that he has, like for example floating and flying. So that's pretty sick. This guy looks really, really cool. Honestly, they do such a great job with the aesthetics of these champions. It's insane. This is one of the main reasons why I play this game, is it just looks so good. And sometimes I build champions just because they look good, even though they might not necessarily be that great in the game, which also throws you people off and makes it so that we end up spending money. I don't spend money on this account, but some people might spend money if they feel like they're stuck, and Raid Plarium is really good at doing that to you. Anyways, he's got the A2 Dreamer's Demise. Attacks all enemies, 75% chance of placing a sleep debuff for 1 turn, and poisons. So this guy might actually be really good against this boss, assuming that poisons can actually deal a pretty significant amount of damage to the boss. The boss also heals up, so you have to keep in mind his healing effect. So if the boss is not immune to heal reduction, then Morrigan, the brand new fusion, might be insane against this guy, because Morrigan, as you guys know, or maybe you don't know this, has the unremovable heal reduction, which I'll show you in just a second. But he also places 2 additional poisons for 2 turns whenever the sleep debuff placed on this skill is removed or disappears after an enemy takes damage. So this guy is probably going to be ridiculous against the new boss. Highly consider using this guy against the new boss if for some reason you have him. He already has insane reviews, as you can see. So interested into seeing people use this guy. Also on the passive, whenever an ally is attacked while under an ally protection buff, 40% chance of placing a sleep debuff on the attacker for 1 turn, and he has the ally protection. So this guy is so good, and decreased accuracy. This guy is ridiculous. Probably one of the highest, the top champions that you can utilize against the brand new boss coming out. This guy is going to be so sought after by endgame players. And leave it in the comments down below. If you're an endgame player and you got this guy, you probably would be super ecstatic about this. I know I would, because again, he's going to be insane. You might only need this guy because he's going to be that good that you could use Kymar paired with this guy, reset his skills, and then have Siphi. I mean, it would be ridiculous if you guys have those champions. So there's that. For another champion that does a sleep, we're going to move on to, actually, you know what? I'll go on to single targets. And of course, I've been talking about her the whole time, but it's Siphi. And Siphi just has that little zap ability, which does the unresistible sleep if they're at or above or equal to 50% turn meter. So that's super annoying in Arena. I honestly hate going up against Siphis, especially if you're not fast enough, because she'll target one of your champions, like your attack-based champion that's just about to take a turn, and then she zaps him, puts him to sleep, and it just ruined your whole rotation. And another reason why you need to make sure your teams are speed-tuned in Arena. So also, I have a lot of undead hordes. I get undead hordes a lot on my free-to-play. But while I'm here, Morrigan, she has the passive at the start of each turn, 100% heal reduction debuff for 2 turns on the enemy with the lowest HP. And that's going to be on the boss. This debuff cannot be removed, transferred, spread, or have its duration increased or decreased by enemies or allies. Morrigan's, she just skyrocketed in value. So her value skyrocketed a lot because of this ability. People were saying, oh, she sucks, she's terrible. But guess what? if this boss can take a heal reduction, it's not removable. So when the boss does his ability to remove them, to remove any of the debuffs that he has when he wakes up, or takes a specific turn to remove the debuffs, it's not going to happen. He's just going to have the heal reduction, and it's at the start of every one of her turns. So if you make her crazy fast and make her tanky and supportive, she's going to increase the speed of your allies. She's going to get the decreased accuracy out there because she's targeting a boss and not the minions. She's going to do decreased speed. I mean, Morrigan value just skyrocketed. But people have said, oh, she's terrible, and nobody wanted to go for him. Okay? Don't read into too much about when content creators are creating videos and say that a champion's trash, just because it doesn't help benefit their account. Keep in mind your own account when you're going for champions, okay? So if you missed out on this person, probably because you're end game and you don't need her on your account. But most people that are mid game or lower should have gone for Morrigan. So there's that. The next person is going to be Chagor. So Chagor is a lizard man, I believe. Yeah, Chagor is a void legendary and super hard to get, of course. And many of you probably don't have Chagor, but he has a sleep on the A1, single target, 50% chance, books out to 75% chance to sleep. Also has decreased defense and poison, really sick. Defense down is for 3 turns. And then on here, attacks one enemy, then attacks one at random. If the target's under poison, will ignore shield, block damage, and unkillable. Grants an extra turn if this attack kills an enemy. Also resets the cooldown of Venom Storm skill if this attack kills 2 enemies. And this right here is really good for his passive. Instantly attacks enemies with the default skill, which is the sleep, whenever they receive damage from a poison debuff that's placed by him. So you'd want to go right into this, actually the Venom Storm, and then that's it. He's just going to keep on attacking the boss every single time. And when hitting enemies under poison, heals this champion as well. So he's self-sustaining, and he'll be very beneficial against this boss in the later stages. Of course, many of you may not have this guy. We're almost done with all of the legendaries. The next person that you could use is, I think it's in the same group here, and it's actually Roxam. So Roxam, also an insane champion. So he has a veil right here if the attack's critical, and then fills his turn meter of the champion by 50%. 75% chance of placing a stun for 1 turn when attacking while under veil or perfect veil. That's not going to really matter. 75% chance of placing a sleep debuff on the target for 1 turn when attacking without veil or perfect veil. Places a perfect veil buff on this champion for 2 turns after attacking without a veil or a perfect veil. He's not going to be as beneficial in my opinion. He's definitely going to work, but he's not going to work as well because when he places a veil or perfect veil on himself, he's not going to be able to place those sleeps. So it's kind of counterproductive against that boss with this guy's skill. So Roxam's good, but probably not the best one if you want to place sleep with him. You're probably going to want to use other champs to try to place that sleep. So there's no sleep on this ability. I'm not even going to read it. But again, it has nothing to do with sleep on this one. Just this one. So the veil or perfect veil is kind of what's going to happen. He's going to place it on himself. But again, I'm sure some people will find a way to utilize this guy. The next one, actually, I think that's all of them. So that's all of them for legendaries. We're going to move on to epics. And if I missed a legendary, then leave it in the comments down below. Epics, actually a really good champion. We'll go to Demon Spawns again. And we have Allure. So a lot of people don't realize that Allure has an attack all enemies 2 times. Each hit 30% chance of placing a defense down. And a sleep debuff on targets under decreased defense. So if she places the decreased defense on them, then boom, she's going to place a sleep. Plus, she also has the decrease the target's turn meter 25% on each critical hit. Now I will say, this boss has some sort of mechanic where if you decrease the turn meter, you lose, I believe you lose a certain amount of your max HP. So you got to be careful. So if you're going to end up losing your max HP and he hits you, you have a chance of dying. So you don't really want to bring his turn meter down unless it's absolutely necessary. But she is there to help with sleep as needed. I just would be very cautious of utilizing her unless you have the certain blessings. I believe there's a blessing that you can utilize to help with gaining your HP back. Miracle Heal. Okay, so it's a Miracle Heal blessing, and this helps restore a percentage of your HP. So it has a chance of restoring a portion of any decreased max HP whenever this champion heals himself or an ally. The amount of HP restored is equal to the percentage of the heal. So if you put it on like a Vogoth, if you put it on like a Rector Drath, if you put it on a healer like Sifi, of course, is probably super OP against that champion, that new dungeon champion, or a dungeon boss when he comes out. It's going to be very beneficial for your account. Alright, so another champion that you can utilize is going to be Chancellor Yasmin. So Chancellor Yasmin, I don't think I have her. Here she is. So she's a halfway decent champion. She's not that great. Places an extra hit if the target has no active buffs. Heals all allies, or heals an ally, not all allies. And then heals by 60% if the ally is 50% HP or less. It's on a 2-turn cooldown, so it's halfway decent. She might actually be really good against the boss because of the healing. And she has ally speed in all battles by 20%. So this champion, a lot of people probably have her in the vault because nobody likes sleep, right? And we have other champions that can heal up, but her value skyrocketed as well. Has a 50% chance of removing all buffs from all enemies. Then places a sleep debuff for 1 turn all enemies who have active buffs. There you go. So that's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. It does book out to a 75% chance of removing all the buffs. Then places a sleep debuff for 1 turn on all. It says one. I think they have a typo here. For 1 turn, all enemies. I think they meant to say for 1 turn on all enemies who have active buffs. Which is kind of confusing, right? Because if they have buffs, they would still have buffs on for it to place a sleep. This is a confusing worded ability. I think they need to reword this, because is it that she removes all the buffs and then it places a sleep, or does she remove some of the buffs and then for some reason the champions still have a buff and then it places a sleep only if they have a buff remaining? I think it's the latter, but let me know in the comments down below. What is your thought about this ability skill? So let's move on to the next one. The next one is going to be Cornelia. So she is a dwarf. And let's see, Cornelia. So she's a pretty good champion as well. Very good healer. Very good epic healer. 40% chance of increasing the cooldown of one of the target's skills by 2 turns at random. Here's her sleep. So 80% chance of placing a sleep debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. Very good. Whenever an enemy loses a sleep debuff placed by this skill, has a 50% chance of replacing it with a fear debuff. And of course, the boss is not going to get feared because bosses can't get feared in this game. And then places a sleep debuff on an ally for 1 turn, heals that ally by 50% of their max HP, fills the turn meter by 50% when the sleep debuff expires or gets removed, heals that ally by 100%, and completely fills their turn meter if the sleep debuff is lost due to taking damage from an enemy. Also has ally speed in all battles by 18%. So really, really good champion that you could utilize as well. But again, you don't need an AoE sleep champion. You only need a single target AoE champion, a single target sleep champion. So it's not necessary to have this champion, but very, very good champion with the increased speed is very helpful. The next champion you could utilize is going to be I think orcs. Let's see. Alright, so the next champion is going to be Seer. Seer is very good as well. She does have the remove all buffs from all allies and enemies, then attacks all enemies, and this is the enemy max HP ability, which is really nice. A lot of you don't have Seer, but if you do have her, she does have a 50% chance of placing a sleep debuff on all enemies for 1 turn, and the chance of placing a sleep debuff increases by 5% for each buff removed. Inflicts less damage to bosses, of course, because she'd be way too OP if she does too much damage to the bosses, right? So she's already OP against the waves, as it is. So yeah, so having this ability is very, very helpful. Consider utilizing Seer if you want as an epic champion, if you're mid-game or later game, but you just don't have the right champions to do the job. So there's that champion. Next one is going to be Old But Gold. Wonderful Tyrell. This guy's a beast. I love Tyrell. Do consider taking him out of the vault. He's actually really, really good. He also can help duo the campaign on Nightmare if you have just a Paragon. He's the cheese man, right? So he helps Paragon cheese Campaign Nightmare last stage. So he also has a decreased attack. Super great against this upcoming boss because you're going to want to put decreased attack on this boss as much as possible and sleep as much as possible. So attacks all enemies, 75% chance of placing a decreased defense for 2 turns. If the target is under a decreased attack, it'll place a sleep for 1 turn as well. Plus he's based on defense, so very easy to keep alive. I would consider just turning off Preemptive Strike against the new boss. And he has defense in all battles as well for more support. Very, very good champion. The next one, which many people don't utilize pretty much at all, he's in the Undead Hordes, and it is Xelata. So Xelata, right here. I don't really see people utilizing this guy all that much. I have my Xelata at rank 5, level 50, but he's a pretty good champion. He has a sleep on the A1, 15% chance. It does book out to 25, 35, 40%. And then if you put the mastery, that's going to help an additional boost of 5% more. If you go down the defense tree, it could be helpful with this guy. Plus he has the shields on all allies equal to 20% of this guy's max HP for 3 turns. And a continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns. And he has another sleep. So Xelata's value also skyrocketed. Attacks all enemies, 50% chance of placing a sleep debuff. 75% chance against enemies under debuffs. So it's 75% without any debuffs on the enemies. It's on a 5-turn cooldown. Or 100% if you have debuffs on the guy already. But I think that the way that the mechanics work for this guy, I'm pretty sure you have to place the sleep before you can place debuffs. If I'm right on that, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that's what I got from watching the video. But this guy's still going to be good regardless. So I think that this move is good. This move's good. So Xelata, consider utilizing this guy. Plus he has a resist, but it's in arena. That's kind of annoying. But pretty strong 70 resist for an epic-based champion. So this guy's good. This guy's really good. Consider using Xelata against the boss as well. And other epics that you can utilize. There's actually a referral epic, Barbarian, Jamarsa. Also a reviver as well. Super, super good champion. She is a little bit cold. Oh my god. Anyways, so she has a sleep on the A1. Attacks one enemy, 30% chance of placing a sleep. Boom. Books out to 50%. Very strong. If Chronom's on the same team and the sleep debuff was resisted or blocked, place a 30% decreased speed instead, and this debuff cannot be blocked. Okay, so that's pretty cool. It can only be resisted. And then heals, and then revives all dead allies with 30% turn meter and 30% HP. Whenever an ally uses an active skill, 20% chance of decreasing the cooldown on that skill as well. And it books down to a 0 cooldown, which means anytime an allied champion takes a turn and they have like an A2 or A3 sleep ability, they have a 20% chance of having that, of decreasing the cooldown of that skill by 1 turn. That is pretty strong in my opinion. I think it's very powerful. So consider using Jamarsa as well. Another champion we have is Maeve, and I think that's in the same faction here. So Maeve has a sleep on the A1. 60% chance of placing a sleep. 50% chance of granting an extra turn if the sleep is placed. And then it books out to 70% chance of sleep and 60% chance of an extra turn if the sleep is placed. And then she has a stun and places a stun for 2 turns of the targets on her sleep. But you can't stun a boss, so enemies killed by this skill cannot be revived. So this one, again, this is a hard-hitting ability by Maeve, but mainly she's going to be utilized for her sleep. So if you have Maeve, consider utilizing her. Next champion is going to be Thenisol. So actually in the High Elves. So Thenisol's here. I don't have Thenisol, but he's a very good champion as well. 15% chance of placing a sleep with no books. 20, 25, 30, 40, 50% chance if you book him out. So that's not bad. So 50% chance when you book him out. That's a pretty good ability. Increased defense on all allies, heals them as well based on his max HP. And decrease the duration of all enemy buffs. So not crazy. Oh, this is actually really nice. Ally resistance in dungeons by 70. That's really good for Thenisol. So you might want to consider utilizing him as well, since his ability for sleep is on the A1. And it's going to be much easier and better for you guys to be utilizing champions that have the sleep on the A1 rather than an AoE ability. then Asal's really good. Now we got to move on to the rare champions. So rare champions, this is for early game players that are just starting to hit level 38 and you're between 38 and 45. Again, I don't recommend for you guys to go after the boss when you're such a low level. You should go after the boss when you've actually developed your Great Hall a little bit. You've gotten a lot of good gear, and now you want to actually go into the dungeon and try to get those oils. So just be careful and be mindful. Don't waste your resources, energy, the hard-earned energy, on just farming that dungeon, because then you're going to set yourself back even further in progression on the game. It's going to take you longer and longer and longer to beat the game if you just laser focus on new content. That's what Raid wants to do to you. They want you to laser focus on certain content, so it messes up your progression, and then you may potentially end up spending money unnecessarily. So the first one we've got is going to be Knights Revenant, and we're going to go with Arcanist. And of course, there are 873 reviews, and let's see, she actually has some pretty decent reviews. A1 sleep, 20, 25, 30, 40% chance to sleep on an A1. So honestly, some of these rares, and even a common champion that I'll show to you at the end, is potentially better than legendary champions, possibly because of the fact that they have an A1 sleep rather than an A2 or A3 sleep, which then puts it on cooldown after you utilize it. Continuous heal buff. Increase attack, increase crit rate for 3 turns, and it's on a 4-turn cooldown. This has an arena defense, so the aura is pointless, but again, A1 sleep. Next one we're going to go to is going to be in the demon spawns. So we've got Diabolist. A lot of people have Diabolist, but she's the champion that you need to utilize to fuse a specific champion. I think it's Rosin, but attacks one enemy. 10% chance of sleeping, only books out to 20. So she's not insane, but she does have the ally, attacks all enemies, increase speed buff on all allies. She also has the fill turn meter of all allies by 15% and decrease the turn meter of enemies by 15%. But again, be careful because he'll decrease your max HP based on his passives. So next champion we're going to go to is Interceptor, and she is on the high elves. Interceptor decreased the speed, so that's nice on the debuff. Attacks one enemy again. It's a 6-turn book down to a 5-turn cooldown, so that's a long cooldown. 45% chance of placing a sleep debuff for 2 turns though. Places a 15% weaken debuff for 2 turns if this skill does not place a sleep, so that's halfway decent. The good news is she's a defense based champion, so she can be kept alive longer, and decreases the turn meter of all enemies by 15%. So she's actually not too bad. It's a 2-turn sleep, which is nice, but it only has a booked out to 50% chance to place the sleep for 2 turns. So you're kind of gambling on that one, but of course it's not horrible. Next champion we can use is Muckstalker. Muckstalker is also a rare champion that you can utilize. So Muckstalker here, we've got block buffs. Okay. Sleep, places a sleep debuff for 2 turns if the target has no active buffs. This is on a 2-turn cooldown. 100% chance. If they don't have any buffs, it just places a sleep for 2 turns. Really, really good. Continuous heal buff on this champion for 2 turns if the incoming damage exceeds 20% HP on 1 attack. As you know, the new dungeon boss is going to be hitting very hard with one of his abilities, and so pretty much he'll always place continuous heals on himself. Faction Crypt Aura, not really going to help, and then block buffs. So Muckstalker actually is really good for the new boss as a rare champion. Next champion that everybody hates is Retainer. And whenever people get him, they always say that he's like like an emo dude or whatever. But defense down 30%, weak sauce, heals the champion by 40% of their max HP and places a counter attack, and then a 4-turn cooldown sleep, decreases the target's turn meter by 50%. If the target's turn meter is fully depleted, places a sleep. So he's still not that great. I wouldn't use Retainer against the new boss. Unless it's like the only guy you have in your super early game, then you could consider doing it because it'll be helpful because he's based on defense, so he can be kept alive a little bit longer. But in my opinion, he's going to be probably on the bottom of the barrel type of champion to utilize. Another really good champion that you can use that I have, level 60, and I utilize him in Faction Wars a lot, is going to be Seducer. Seducer is insane. I mean, he has the A1 sleep, just zaps people kind of like Sifi, but of course he doesn't have the unresistible mechanic to it. 45% chance. It's insane. And then he has decreased attack, 100% chance, booked out. And then block, debuffs, and increased defense. It's the weak version, but really good for 2 turns. And then ally protection if you have Temptress on the same team, but Temptress honestly is trash, so yeah. Ally HP in all battles by 25% as well for a rare Void champion. He is so good. You should be utilizing him in Faction Wars. If you don't, really good against the stage 21 boss. So that's him. The next one is going to be actually in the Shadowkin, and we've got Vagabond, a scary looking champion. Honestly, she's kind of creepy looking, but she has a sleep on the A1. Books out to a 30-40% chance of placing a sleep for 1 turn. And then block buffs, and then fills the turn meter of all allies, increase attack on all allies, the weak version, and accuracy in arena. Aura doesn't really matter, but the sleep is there on the A1. So you could consider using Vagabond. She's actually halfway decent. And then other champions, actually one insane champion that I have that I already started building. He is going to be ridiculous in my opinion for a rare champion, and that is Marquise. Okay, this guy is going to be insane. You build him with perception. I've had him built for a long time actually. I didn't just start building him. I have him in immunity for arena for a little while. He was only level 40. I never actually built him up because of course other champs are going to be better, right, than rares. But you put him in perception and you go against that boss and you put him in like high speed to, obviously you want more than 200 speed, but you're going to need more accuracy. They're probably going to make his accuracy thresholds or his resistance thresholds pretty high, this boss. So I'm assuming you're going to need maybe like 400 to 500 resistance, or 400 to 500 accuracy, if they decide to put the boss with over 400 resistance like they did with the Iron Twins. So you got to be careful. Or they're going to have that guy's resistance the same as all other dungeon bosses that are, you know, level 20 to 25. So if that's the case, then you're only going to need like 230 to 250. Only 230 accuracy is going to be needed. And for resistance, you'll need around 350 resistance against stage 25 if his resistance and accuracy scales based off of all the other dungeon bosses. So yeah, consider putting this guy in all accuracy sets and high speed. And I think based on his ability, it says this debuff cannot be removed. So if it's placed for 1 turn and he's about to take a turn where it's to remove the debuffs from him, he won't be able to remove the sleep, but at the end of the day, he's going to be sleeping anyways, so it doesn't really matter. So this guy's good. He does have the continuous heal on himself. A little bit selfish there. And then of course the ally HP is force only, so that kind of stinks, but it is what it is. Alright, so that's all the rares, that's all the epics. Now we're going to move on to the common and uncommon champions that can be utilized. Alright, so we're moving on to your favorite champions in the game. And we've got, on the Undead Hordes, our wonderful Death Knight. Let's go. Death Knight has just decided to come out of the vault, and now he's going to be utilized. I am going to laugh when I see people with 5 Death Knights going at it against this new boss. He's got the sleep on the A1, and then he got a chance of counterattacking, 30% chance. So it's got a, what, 15, 20, 25, 35% chance of placing that sleep for 1 turn. And if he counterattacks, he's going to have a chance of placing it again. So Death Knight might actually be really good for once. He's going to actually have a boss that he can fight. Wow. Isn't that insane? And then the other champion actually is in the same faction. The only other champion. And it's Hellhound. Hellhound is going to be taken out of the vault too for you early game, mid game players. Honestly, some end game players might even consider building them because they're so much easier to build. But if you're end game, you're going to be using end game characters anyways. So places a sleep on the target when hit with a critical. So it's just guaranteed sleep when hit with a critical. You still probably need the accuracy though. So, but if you hit a critical, it now goes to the accuracy threshold and then boom, that person's sleeping. So Hellhound is actually going to be very beneficial, and the value skyrocketed on him against the new boss. That's going to be it for this one. I won't keep you guys any longer now. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you've watched this far, consider subscribing to the channel. Like the video if you did like this and you thought it was informative. And I will see you on the next video soon. Peace.